an object that could revolutionize monetary history as we know it, raises the pertinent hypothesis of the already developed and used coins. That would certainly be a game changer with monetary history for sure.
In 2019, a peculiar coin was auctioned by the Swiss auction house Genevensis. The item was said to be the oldest coin in the world. Upon analysis, the coin was shown to be made of extremely pure silver, with a purity rating of 98.54%. The coin sold for $32,000. Relatively cheap for a private collection item of this significance. When one looks closely at the coin, one can see an insignia that unmistakably points to its origin, an ancient Egyptian cartouche. Thomas Sankara once said, "The enemies of a people are those who keep them in ignorance." At least half a millennia before the Greeks and the Lydians, the black Africans from the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex were already printing silver-made coins. And yet, the concept of coinage, often attributed as money in the form we commonly recognize, has been, like many black African inventions, erroneously assigned to ancient Lydia, around the 7th century BCE. Lydia was part of the Greek world in terms of cultural influence and proximity, although it was an independent kingdom located in what is now modern-day Turkey. The invention of money, like many of the black African inventions of writing, architecture, medicine, mathematics, and religion, was the turning point of human civilization, forming the basis of the modern world. We often attribute the 3,000-year stability of the ancient Egyptian Kemetic civilization to the river Nile. The Nile may have just been the geographic kickstarter of Kemet, but the undying ingenuity of the Africans in multiple sciences, including economics, contributed to its long-lived splendor. In addition, the forms of money that the Kemetu invented were what the author Saifuddin Amos would call sound money, a medium of exchange that is not only limited in supply but also durable, portable, and widely accepted. And when we show that the Kemetu initiated the majority of the concepts that we associate with money, we are not saying that other people were not capable of doing the same. Far from that. We are, however, bound to follow the evidence wherever it takes us. In other words, we are saying that evidence shows that the economic principles, the medium of exchange, the standard for those medium of exchanges, and the application of sound money principles to stabilize their economy and empower their people. Those concepts have been shown to all emerge in Black Africa, well before they spread to the rest of the world. And today we will see how the Africans evolved their economy from banter to the first ever coin. This is the Without History channel. Every episode, we bring salient facts about African ancient civilizations in history. We detail how these ancient civilizations set the foundation of our modern world. We dive deep into what research reveals about the often overlooked and misattributed contributions about these key eras in our collective history. This channel would not exist without the invaluable support of everyday supporters like you. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us eradicate ignorance of our history. The people of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex had standards for everything. They were the first to standardize the use of the decimal system we use today. They were the first to establish fractions to express part of a whole. They were also the first to establish a standard unit of distance measurement. Today, we call it the meter, but in fact the meter is just a repackage of the universal measures that the Kemet had invented. These included the cubit and the meter. In fact, the cubit was originally determined by measuring the pharaoh's forearm length from elbow to fingertip. So it comes as no surprise that the people of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex established the first standard of measure for a value. Even before they invented their coin, the Egyptians knew the value of the goods that were being traded.
However, people still knew the value of the goods that were being traded. And each good was valued against a unit of currency known as the bronze deben. The deben was a unit of weight, which was about 91 grams during the Late New Kingdom. And there are examples of bronze deben ingots that were actually made. And the Egyptians even had weights that they used to measure the deben. However, most people never actually traded ingots as coins. Besides the deben, the Egyptians had some large units of currency. There was the gold deben, which was also a weight, but it was gold instead of bronze. But that seems to have been very rarely used. A more common large unit of currency was the ceniu, that was based upon the value of silver.
So this means that the Africans, all the way back in the 3rd millennium BC, had a gold standard and silver standard. This should come as no surprise given the large number of standards that they initiated, and these standards then spread to multiple subsequent civilizations, and continues to be in use today. As inflation is accelerating and robbing the purchasing power of the masses, the gold standard is making a comeback. Many countries have learned the hard way that holding foreign fiat reserves in US dollars, for example, has caused them to lose half of that value overnight as the Federal Reserve doubled the money supply. The Kemet gold standard could further be broken down into smaller units of currency called car. One car would be equal to a sack of grain, and each car could be divided into 4 opi, so 1 sinew equals 5 debine, which is equal to 10 car, equal to 40 opi. If this sounds similar, it is because our coinage system is very similar to what the Africans from the Nubio-Kemetic civilizations were using. Unlike the coins that everyone possesses today, these units were standards that all could refer to in their trades, and thanks to this, ancient Egypt developed a sophisticated economy. Even today's billionaires don't seem to be materially satiated as they continue to pursue and purchase more boats, mansions, and properties. This shows that wherever they sit on the economic scale, humans have a continuous and insatiable demand, and it is the difference between the demand and available resources that we label economics. Today, economies come in multiple forms, from capitalism to universal basic income, or even communism. And the Africans were really the first to try and resolve this problem. Their approach was to have a centrally controlled economy with significant individual economic freedom. As with any high time horizon and highly specialized economy, Kemet had a high pyramid of specialization that was supported by an agrarian base. And because farming and grain storage had become so efficient, it had enabled the rise of professions that had never been seen before, from surgeons to makeup artists and professional sportsmen. All the farms on the banks of the Nile really belonged to the crown, and it was the state's responsibility to distribute grain to the rest of the society equitably. An average farmer was paid roughly 200 kilograms of grain per month, and the temples also doubled as grain storage. And, because grain was so universally needed, it served as one of the many units of currency for the Africans. It did fail, however, at the transportability property. If one needed to purchase land, it would be very impractical to carry 3 tons of grain around before starting negotiations. So the Kemet used many other mediums of exchange. Cattle was one of those popular mediums of exchange. There are many depictions of cow-to-grains ratios on the wall reliefs of Kemetic tombs. And it has remained so till today, where pastoral nations in East and West Africa still measure wealth based on the number of horns one possesses. Interestingly enough, in the south of Kemet, commonly referred to as Nubia today, gold was more abundant and was used as a medium of exchange, a far more stable, durable, and transportable currency. But in great part, Kemet had a free market trade, where direct involvement from the crown on everyday prices was rare, an early precursor to the free market. And the trust in the economy was protected by measures such as property right and the ability for anyone to sue anyone else if they felt they had been wronged for both personal and economic matters. The pharaoh, of course, being a god-king, was exempt from such rules. The oldest gold mine in history is often cited as being in Georgia in 3000 BC, some 5,000 years ago. And yet, far less spoken about is the gold mine in South Africa in Eswatini. This is only one of the many misattributions that disfavor Africa when it comes to history. And in this case, we are talking about an error that isn't just of a few hundred years, like the African invention of writing centuries before Sumer, but tens of thousands of years. Several Stone Age artifacts have been found in the mine during archaeological works in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Their age was established with radiocarbon dating as older than 20,000 years. Later, radiocarbon dating yielded the age of the oldest mining activities as 41,000 to 43,000 years. This would make Ngwenya the oldest known mine. The site was known to early man for its deposits of red and specular hematite used in cosmetics and rituals. But the Africans were well ahead of their time, because before gold became a trusted medium of money, many other currencies were tried. On the island of Yap, located in the western Pacific Ocean, there are large stone discs called rye stones that were used as a form of currency. This unique monetary system offers profound insights into the nature of money and value, which aligns well with the themes explored in Amos's work. The system of rye stones functioned without the need for physical transfer of the stones themselves. Ownership was transferred through oral agreements, witnessed by the community, which effectively maintained a public ledger of sorts. If a stone changed hands, everyone in the community would be aware of the new owner. Interestingly, the actual location of the stone did not necessarily matter. There are accounts of stones that had sunk to the bottom of the sea still being used in transactions because the community agreed on their value and ownership. One notable story involves a particularly large stone that was being transported by canoe. During the journey, the canoe encountered a storm and the stone sank to the bottom of the ocean. Despite this, the community continued to recognize the stone's value and ownership. This anecdote underscores the concept that the physical presence of money is less important than the collective agreement on its value. The Rye stones serve as an early example of a decentralized monetary system, where the value is derived from collective trust and consensus rather than the physical characteristics of the currency itself. This system functioned efficiently for centuries, demonstrating that money's value is rooted in the social constructs and agreements of the people using it. There is a similar story of a decentralized form of money on the other side of the globe in Africa, and it's one that lasted for centuries throughout the whole continent. Cowry shells, specifically the shells of the marine mollusk known as the cowry, family Cypreidae, originated in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. They were introduced to Africa by traders from the Indian Ocean region, making their way into the continent's trade networks as early as 1000 BCE. However, their use as currency became widespread across various parts of Africa, mainly during the medieval period. The shells were small, durable, and had a natural, appealing appearance, which made them an ideal form of money. They were also relatively scarce in Africa, which added to their value. Cowry shells were used across a broad swath of the continent, from West Africa, where they were integrated into the trade networks of the Sahel and forest regions, to East Africa and even parts of Central Africa. In West Africa, cowry shells became so integral to the economy that they were used to purchase everything from everyday items at the market to paying taxes and settling legal fines. In some societies, cowries were even used in rituals and as bride price, embedding them deeply into the social and cultural fabric of the communities. The widespread use of cowry shells and their initial scarcity on the continent made them the perfect candidate for sound money. Widely accepted value, transportable, divisible, and with a limited supply. This facilitated trade across different regions, helping to link distant communities economically and culturally. They were often used in long-distance trade, especially in the trans-Saharan trade routes, where they exchanged hands along with gold, salt, textiles, and other valuable goods. During the early colonial era, however, the industrial production of cowry shells in places like Liverpool and the mass importation of these shells into Africa diluted their value, erasing centuries of value overnight and destabilizing local economies. With the economies disrupted, the social fabric of the African empires collapsed quickly. Because there was no more trust in the monetary system, African societies no longer had trust in their institutions and opted for a shorter reward time horizon. As opposed to a time horizon that enabled more specializations. By the end of the 19th century and the early 20th century, cowrie shells had largely been phased out as official currency, although they continued to hold ceremonial and ornamental value in many African cultures. Today, cowrie shells remain a symbol of wealth and prosperity in many African traditions, a tribute to their historical role as one of the continent's earliest and most enduring forms of currency and traditional jewelry. Just like gold did, as we shall see. There was never an example of hyperinflation before when monies were tied to gold or silver. Actually, that's a lie. There was such an example when Mansam Musa, the richest man in history by far, traveled from the Mali Empire to Mecca. Mali's wealth was primarily derived from its abundant gold mines. The most notable gold-producing regions included Bambouk, Bure, and Galam. These mines were some of the richest in the world, supplying a significant portion of the global gold market at the time. Arab historian Al-Umari described Mali's gold wealth, noting that the amount of gold which comes from the country of Mali in 1 year is countless. The empire's control over these mines allowed it to amass great wealth, which was evident in the splendor and luxury of its cities, such as Timbuktu and Gao. These cities became centers of trade, education, and culture, attracting scholars, traders, and adventurers from across the known world. The Mali Empire strategically controlled the trade routes between sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. These routes were vital for the trans-Saharan trade, which included not only gold, but also salt, ivory, and other goods. The empire's ability to secure and protect these routes ensured a steady flow of wealth into its coffers. One of the key trade routes passed through the city of Timbuktu, which became a bustling hub of commerce and learning. It connected traders from the interior of Africa with those from the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern regions. Ibn Battuta, the famous Arab traveler, visited Mali in the 14th century and was struck by the wealth and sophistication of its people. He wrote, "They are very beautiful and comely, and the women have greater status than the men." The wealth of the Mali Empire is perhaps best exemplified by the famous pilgrimage of Mansam Musa, the empire's most celebrated ruler, to Mecca in 1324. Mansam Musa's caravan included thousands of attendants and camels loaded with gold. He distributed so much gold in Cairo and other cities along his route that he caused a significant drop in the value of gold, leading to inflation that lasted for over a decade. Al-Umari, who documented Mansam Musa's pilgrimage, noted, "Mansam Musa left Mali with a caravan consisting of 60,000 men, all wearing brocade and Persian silk, including 12,000 slaves, each carrying 1.8 kilograms, 4 wireless, of gold bars." His lavish spending had a profound impact on the economies of the regions he passed through, particularly in Cairo, Medina, and Mecca. The influx of such a vast amount of gold into these markets caused a significant drop in the value of gold, leading to inflation. In Cairo, the price of goods skyrocketed as the sudden abundance of gold devalued the metal. This phenomenon continued for over a decade as the local economies struggled to absorb the sudden influx of wealth. This historical incident is one of the few examples where an economy experienced a form of hyperinflation while operating on a gold standard. The immense wealth, but also the incredible economic stability of its gold-backed monetary system, enabled the Mali Empire to become a beacon of culture and education. Timbuktu, in particular, became an intellectual center, housing the famous Sankore University and numerous other schools and libraries. Scholars from across the world came to study and teach in Mali, contributing to a vibrant cultural and academic life. The real value of gold is its ability to preserve purchasing power for its holder. This benefit is not so apparent until one realizes the impact it has on citizens, because a currency that isn't sound erodes the wealth of the very people who are the basis of the civilization. When a government or ruling entity increases the money supply, the value of the currency decreases. This is because more money chases the same amount of goods and services, leading to higher prices, inflation. As prices rise, the purchasing power of the currency falls, meaning people can buy less with the same amount of money. Stable money is a cornerstone of a functioning economy. When people lose trust in the value of their currency, they are less likely to save and invest, leading to decreased economic growth. Hyperinflation is an extreme example where money loses its value rapidly, and people resort to barter or foreign currencies. Inflation acts as a hidden tax. It erodes the value of savings, disproportionately affecting those who save money versus those who have assets like real estate or stocks. Debt holders benefit because they repay their debts with devalued money, while creditors and savers lose. This is why there are so many civilizations that went into decline after their rulers started to devalue their currencies. The debasement of the Roman denarius contributed to economic instability. Over time, the silver content of the coin was reduced, leading to inflation and loss of trust in the currency. This monetary instability is highlighted as one of the factors contributing to the decline of the Roman Empire. And Rome wasn't alone. Byzantine Empire maintained the stability of the gold solidus, bezant, for centuries, which contributed to its economic strength and longevity. However, once the empire started debasing its currency, it faced similar economic challenges as Rome, which contributed to its decline. So did the hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic. After World War I, Germany faced massive reparations payments and started printing money to meet its obligations. The resulting hyperinflation destroyed the German mark, leading to economic chaos and paving the way for political instability and the rise of the Nazi regime. And the Ottoman Empire's struggles with currency debasement. Over centuries, the Ottoman lira was repeatedly debased, leading to inflation and economic decline. This monetary instability weakened the empire, making it more susceptible to internal and external pressures. So, when the Kemet defined standards of measure for their currency, with their gold and silver standards, and later on their pure silver coin, they established a way for the basis of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization to remain stable. And this is one of the contributing factors to Egypt's 3,000-year success and the Africans' incredible ingenuity. And these lessons should help us realize that our current dependency on the continually devalued dollar is a warning sign that we should all heed carefully. To put this into perspective, consider the value of gold in more modern times. 1 ounce of gold in 1971 was priced at $32. By 1980, during a period of significant inflation and economic turmoil in the United States, the price of gold had soared to over $800 per ounce. Considering the immense age of the Egyptian civilization, it is somewhat surprising how few old Egyptian coins are actually found. Egypt was a commercial phenomenon, being known as one of the most fertile and wealthy people of the ancient world. Such a large country, with trade flowing through it, had to have some sort of currency. Images of trade do appear in ancient Egyptian art, with scenes of busy market traders bartering items, but it is accepted that barter alone would not be sufficient for such a large civilization. Even back in the ancient world, accountants did keep detailed records of transactions, and there are consistent mentions of a currency unit known as a shat. The shat, however, does not appear to have been a coin. Historians thought it could potentially be a gold ring based on imagery, but none have been found. And historians believe the shat may have been a currency on paper only. Without any evidence of a specific coin, token, or associated item of any kind, the shat remains something of a mystery, one that keeps old Egyptian coins in a state of uncertainty to this day. What is known for certain is that the Egyptians used one of the oldest forms of a gold standard. As part of this guideline, 7.5 grams of gold was worth 1 shat, and 12 shats was worth a deben. All mention of the shat seemed to disappear from records under Pharaoh Ramesses II, 1279, 1212 BC. The current widespread historical narrative on the first Egyptians' coins goes as follows. Gold was very symbolic to Egyptian culture, as it was considered a gift from the gods. This meant that Egyptian leaders wouldn't have wanted this godly metal associated with monetary coins used in daily life. It is believed that the Egyptians even changed to a silver standard after this period. The first coins found to be minted in Egypt were relatively late, coming from the late dynastic period of 664 BC, 332 BC. The oldest Egyptian gold coins were known as a stater, a coin that originated in Greece. The old Egyptian staters were introduced under the pharaoh Teos and were minted primarily to pay Greek mercenaries used in a campaign against the Persians. Teos was unpopular, however, and was replaced by his nephew Nectanebo II, who struck his own version of the gold stater. There is evidence of some Persian coins also minted in Egypt around this time. The Ptolemaic period, 305-30 BC onwards, marks the beginning of regular minting of old Egyptian coins. The reign of Ptolemy II in particular saw a rapid increase in the circulation of coins, but these were made mostly of bronze. Unlike the Greeks, Egypt had no silver mines and had to import silver for use in the production of coins. This made it too expensive for widespread use, but some silver was used for coins up to the time of Cleopatra and the Roman conquest. Silver coins had, however, been debased to 33% purity by the early BC years. Gold was simply considered too valuable for daily use at this time, but an impressive octodrachm coin was produced, which contained almost 1 ounce of pure gold. The Roman conquest of Egypt signaled the end of an era for Egyptian coins, in which Roman coins were introduced and Egyptian coins slowly phased out of circulation. By the time of Emperor Nero, 54-68 AD, few Ptolemaic coins remained. For the next 1,800 years, Egypt found itself under the rule of the Roman and Byzantine empires, before becoming part of the Fatimid Caliphate, the Mamluk Sultanate, and eventually the Ottoman Empire. Using a bimetallic standard, Egypt continued to produce gold and silver coins. Between 1837 and 1900, the following coins were struck. But what the official story of coins in Kemet doesn't tell is that King Tutankhamun, half a millennia before the supposed first Greek coins, was already minting silver coins with the cartouche of the king in modern-day Lebanon. This means that, unlike what we have been made to believe, the financial know-how did not flow from outside in, but rather from inside out. From the invention of money to philosophy, from organized religion to astronomy, from algebra to the scientific method, it is hard to find one aspect of our modern world that wasn't initiated and impacted by our ancestors in Black Africa. They migrated from Central and South Africa with their Blombos stones and the mastery of math shown in the Ashango bone, and they then migrated to the Levant, where they discovered agriculture before moving to the Sahara and developing their pastoral tradition and mummification. No, the truth is we are lucky to live in an era where the historical wrongs can be corrected, where the rightful place of the African woman and the African man can be restituted in their invaluable contribution to modernization, because the true value of the truth cannot be measured in coins, but it lives on as a vital force of legacy in the consciousness of the next generation. Ma'at proper. The truth is, just like many of the other videos on this channel, you have listened until this point without hitting the like button or even commenting. History will not be kind to you. And if you want to find out more about the full history of Black people, from 10,000 BC to 1900 AD, don't miss our episode 19. We also covered the suppressed presence of Black nobility in medieval Europe in episode 18. And lastly, in episode 16, we reviewed the scientific evidence that showed the African seeding of the Chinese and Japanese civilization. The people who donated via crypto really helped me continue this important research. A few of you reached out on Twitter. I thank you immensely. Also, an immense thank you to anyone who has ever supported the channel by clicking the like button, subscribing, joining the membership, or via Patreon. You guys are the true masters of the coin. Links in the description. Join us and see how those who are said to be without history birthed civilization itself.